Welcome to episode 161 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the Keyboard Warriors edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host, and I'm with my co-host, the former iRacing Indy 500 champion, computer genius, a gentleman and a scholar. His name is Josh Fine. What's going on, brother?
Hey, I'm doing great, Phil, as always. Of course, we had a really interesting weekend of racing across, NASCAR, to an extent in Formula One and even IMSA at Sebring, and then of course got March Madness basketball going on all weekend as well. So yeah, plenty to go on in racing and just sports in general.
Yeah, definitely for me as a Jersey guy, seeing Princeton make the Sweet 16 for the first time since the 60s or something is pretty cool. FDU having a chance late in the game to Fairleigh Dickinson University going and beating Purdue on Friday and then almost coming through. I mean, they had a hard time last night, but the fact is they're the smallest team in the NCAA tournament, so they were going to have a hard time with that pacing of Florida Atlantic. So credit to them. They would have had a home game at Madison Square Garden if they had won, though. We'll probably talk about that at some point, but we'll definitely talk about NASCAR here. All three races took place last week. We'll get into the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, which wasn't won by Fish Lips. It was won by his teammate, Pecco Perez. The roundup will talk about the cluster that was the end of the 12 hours of Sebring, which saw the top three cars overall in the race all get destroyed with 18 minutes to go. We'll get into the points and the points repercussions of all of that. The FIA WEC started, and wouldn't you know, Toyota won again. But there is positive signs with Ferrari and with Cadillac, maybe not so much other than that, but we'll see as we go along. Formula 2 was at Jeddah last week, so we'll get into the results there. Supercross raced at Seattle, so do that. Rally Mexico, another historic win for a legendary driver. The MotoGP season starts this weekend at Portimao. There are American riders in Moto 2, so we'll focus on that and MotoGP. The Arizona Nationals at Wild Horse, whatever, Pass. I think the last time they're going to be racing there, so that'll be something. That Formula E Sao Paulo E-Prix also be coming up this weekend. And then we'll do our picks and we'll preview and make picks for Circuit of the Americas triple header this coming weekend. Josh will do his sim segment and we'll call it a day. But yeah, let's start with the NASCAR Cup Series at Atlanta. It was the Ambetter 400, Ambetter Health 400, at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Last lap pass for the victory by Joey Logano over his former teammate Brad Keselowski to get himself his first win of the 2023 season and more or less solidify himself in the playoffs for 2023, leading the most laps. He won stage one, finished second in stage two, swapped with Gumby, his teammate, in the second stage, led the most laps, 140 of the race's 260 laps, and was able to make that pass there with on the last lap or 2 laps ago or whatever to go and beat Brad Keselowski, who's trying to break nearly a 2-year winless streak, because we're getting to that point, because he won at Talladega back in 21. I think it was the last time he won. So Brad Keselowski was second, Christopher Bell third, Corey Lajoie scores his best career finish again, this time a 4th place. Tyler Reddick, who wasn't feeling all that great, but somehow was able to get through and finish 5th. His car owner, Denny Hamlin, was 6th. Ryan Blaney, 7th. Eric Jones, 8th. Ty Gibbs, 9th, so his best career Cup Series finish. And Kyle Busch, an unhappy 10th. As I mentioned, Cindric got a playoff point, and from winning that stage, there's other people who led the race and got Chastain led once for 5 laps. Bowman got stage points, so they were 13th and 14th respectively. Richard finished 17th. He led one time for 7 laps. Truex scored stage points, but lost track position late in the race. Even Cody Ware led a lap, so that's something. He was only one position behind Chase Briscoe, who started 8th. Don't get it. I'm getting sick and tired of them running like crap every week, except for one. It's getting old. Daniel Suarez got involved in one of the late race incidents, one of the later race incidents. Eric Almirola and Kyle Larson, while Eric Almirola was leading the race, they're running a 1-2. Almirola blows a tire and they both fall out. You think about it in terms of Hendrick Motorsports, for all the guys that got penalized, Larson finishing 31st and Byron finishing 32nd does not help their cause in regards to making up their huge points deficits. Kevin Harvick was up front, and whether it's from air or whatever from Chastain, got turned and got destroyed. Harrison Burton and Chris Buescher and BJ McLeod were innocent bystanders in that deal. So yeah, Logano dominated. It really wasn't all that interesting, but in the end, he had been buried in the third stage with pit stops and everything. Having to get back up there was very difficult to really move up. Unless you were strategic or you had some methodology. And of course, Joey Logano is one of the best plate racers out there. So he was able to figure out something. The cautions landed the way they did. Of course, you have the choose cone as well. All those things played in his hand, and then he was able to get the right runs. Christopher Bell was able to help him there late to make that pass on Brad Keselowski and get that victory. But essentially it was a Ford benefit, and I'm not mad about that by any stretch of the imagination. The highest Chevy in the field was 8th. Corey Lajoie. Yeah, sorry. So Corey Lajoie, Eric Jones, and Kyle Busch are 3 in the top 10. Even Gagson finished 12th. It tells you. Like, usually when you go to super speedways, you figure Chevys are going to be up front, but in recent times, Fords have been pretty strong. The RFK team has been good the last couple of years with this car. You can, to a lesser extent, Stuart Haas. But Penske, of course, is going to stand out the most because of Joey Logano. And Josh, it's not shocking that Joey Logano won. It's his first win at Atlanta. That's pretty shocking. But the defending series champion has given himself a nice cushion to work on a possible repeat here after that win at Atlanta.
Yeah, definitely. Ford stands for first on race day, of course, with Joey Logano winning in dominating fashion, very convincing fashion, and really it was no other manufacturer that was going to win that race, because obviously Ford, they've figured out something on super speedways, and now Atlanta, because it's a super speedway now, but Logano was up there for a bunch. Keselowski, who's really been impressive this year, finished second and couldn't stop Logano in the last lap, led 47 laps. So, he's leading the turnaround for RFK, and looks like, this year they've led laps in every race. So, they've done a lot in the offseason to definitely improve. But Logano, he looked like in the closing laps, the last 20 laps, the bottom lane just didn't have enough strength, compared to the top lane. I guess there was enough tire wear to where more stability would be up on the top, which is not really surprising, to be honest. Not because of the plates or anything, but just because over time you need more grip on the bottom to be able to hold the bottom, and the top tends to win out in those types of battles, and the grip was starting to fade away with the bottom lane cars, and Keselowski had control over the top lane, and I think if it weren't for Tyler Reddick and Chris Bell trying to make a move on with 2 laps to go, to get to the inside of Keselowski, it's probably is a different story. Maybe potentially Keselowski being the first guy to ever do the winner's interview from the outhouse there. So, definitely could have been different there. But, Logano was able to make a move on the last lap and turn 1 and 2 and get to the outside of Keselowski and make the pass for the win. So, credit to him for doing that. But like you said, though, it wasn't really all that interesting of a race. It was close, like the pack in the pictures, everybody's close together. You have momentum changing, so you get one lane taking the lead eventually, and then the other lane where it's lower, the inside or the outside taking the lead later on. So yeah, definitely. It was kind of more of that type of racing, similar to the Daytona and Talladega. And certainly, I mean, yeah, as the last lap pass, which we've seen before at Atlanta, but I think, the Carl Edwards over Jimmy Johnson, Dale Earnhardt over Bobby Labonte, of course, Harvick over Gordon, which they're calling back to that paint scheme at North Wilkesboro for Kevin Harvick in his first ever win in NASCAR. Finishes like that, I think, were a lot more cooler to see than this type of racing. And so, I mean, I don't necessarily think it's the track per se, but it's just the package, running a super speedway package on a mile and a half oval. I think it's not the right idea. Although they kept it clean for once. It wasn't as, crash fest like last year. So from that end, at least that's one positive to take away. The only real crashes that happened, obviously, Chastain and Kevin Harvick got into it up front. That wasn't, I can't really say that was overly aggressive driving. I think, Chastain was trying to give a bump draft and just, I think he got Harvick loose off the spoiler, kind of, maybe like within an inch or less of touching the rear bumper, and Harvick started to get loose and then spun out and had the big one on the back stretch. And then, of course, Eric Almirola spinning out as well and collecting Kyle Larson up front. They went too long on tires there. So clearly there is a limit with the tires, even if, they're on restrictor plates or tapered spacers, whatever, on a repaved track and everything. So it still kind of matters at least. So, I mean, it was an okay race, but, nothing really exciting to, if you're, a real race fan or anything like that. But at least it was clean for the most part. So, yeah, I mean, it was interesting. And, I did place a bet at the beginning of the race or before the race on Keselowski to finish top 10. So put 10 on that on even odds. So got it back. And then in the middle of the race, I decided that I would bet on Ryan Blaney since he just got back in the lead lap and they had him at the live odds had him at 4,000. So I was like, well, if you put down 10 there, that's 400. So, thought it might happen and started to get a little bit nervous as Ryan Blaney got up towards the front, and everything. But, you got to be in front to be able to win at this track and at Daytona and Talladega. And unless you try to make a move on the last lap, once you get up to second, it's really hard. If you're not the lead car, to be able to take the lead. And of course, Penske cars, they're all going to team up for the most part. Although Austin Cindric seems to think otherwise. It seems like him and Ryan Blaney don't quite gel together. But for Blaney to be able to go and win, he would have had to make a 3-wide move at some point to be able to get around his teammate, and it's going to be hard to be able to do that unless they got separated and he ended up in the top lane or something like that to be able to get around Logano. But yeah, I mean, it could have been, I can't say it could have been better because it's Atlanta the way it is, but at least we get to see a last lap pass and whatever, and at least it seems like the fans there enjoyed it. So I mean, I don't know. It's tough to say, but this is the new Atlanta now, and certainly it's going to be here to stay for a long time.
Yeah, hopefully they go to a 1.5 mile track package, the cookie cutter package they have versus super speedway eventually. It's more like slot car racing that they have there, and you're just expecting something to happen after how embarrassing the Daytona 500 was this year, and maybe a lot of the recent super speedway races have been in general across all three major NASCAR series. I think some of the older drivers, veteran drivers, took it upon themselves to actually try to have a clean race, like Josh was mentioning, and for once they actually did. Still was boring as fuck, but they had a clean race. So for whatever that was worth, and Brad Keselowski, Josh had the Tate Fogleman algorithm pick him. I picked Brad. There was a lot of people who were thinking Brad was going to win that one. He wanted to win this one spot short, but I feel like Brad's going to win here at some point sooner rather than later. The RFK team is in a lot better situation than they were this time last year, and the same timing when Hendrick cars all got nailed for penalties. Was, I think this weekend, particular weekend, was when Brad Keselowski got nailed for the first of 2 massive penalties his team got last year. So much different time. He's in playoff contention. So there's a lot of positives to take from that. Bell continuing to show that he's probably the number 1 guy at Gibbs at the moment. Hamlin hasn't exactly had the greatest start to the year. Hamlin is in the top 10 in points, but Christopher Bell is second in points overall. Joey Logano is the overall points leader, and he has 1 point lead on Christopher Bell. Ross Chastain is third. He had been the points leader a couple weeks ago. Now he's 5 points back in third, going to the track where he won his first career cup race. Blaney, Keselowski, Harvick, 4 through 6. Harvick lost 5 spots after his wreck yesterday. Brad gained 4. Kyle Busch and Truex lost 2 each. Denny Hamlin, Daniel Suarez, Gumby, O. Richard, Chris Buescher, Corey LaJoie, Tyler Reddick, and Bubba Wallace are, in terms of total points, the top 16 now. Of course, when you consider Will Byron is locked in because he's got 2 wins, even though he's 28th in points. That knocks Bubba out. He's 9 points out of the cutoff, which is held by his teammate, Tyler Reddick. So right now, Tyler Reddick and Corey LaJoie are the last 2 people in the playoffs. It's early in the season, but it's pretty crazy to see the performance also. You got to give a shout out to the penny stacker himself. Spire definitely is putting all their energy in trying to make that 7 car actually be relevant. Probably because they're hedging with their charter, knowing that charter deal because of how bad the other car runs or has run over time. But LaJoie getting another top 5 finish on a super speedway type track, the momentum they've had this year, it's a positive sign for one of the smallest organizations in the sport to get that kind of finish. And right now, albeit manipulated to a point because 3 drivers that would be generally ahead of them are not, because they got massive penalties. Right now, after 5 races, they're in a contention for the playoffs. It doesn't seem like it's out of the realm because they're running good enough. That's one thing. Reddick, after a rough start to the year, has turned it around the last 2 weeks. Eric Jones, it's been a rough start in general for Legacy Motor Club, so for him to get a top 10 finish was nice for the organization. Both their cars finishing in the top 12, with one of their car owners coming back this coming week. And Keebler from tailback to finish 9th, so getting his best career cup finish. It's been a struggle for him in this Gen 7 car, so to get a top 10 finish is a positive sign. For a kid who's not used to losing, he's getting humbled, which is nice. Same for Gregson, because he seems really depressed these days. Barry got a top 20 out of that. I guess that's all. We'll see what happens with all that stuff at COTA next week. Now it'll be road racing. We'll get into some of the changes that have taken place there with the road racing this coming year. You got Justin Marks talking about Trackhouse. It says multiple races and multiple drivers. At least Kimi Räikkönen running this weekend at COTA, and could be more races, but then there's other people in play. So who knows? Maybe Elio Castro Neves gets in that car at some point. All right, so we'll get into the XFinity Series Raptor King of Tough 250. The results, wouldn't you know, Hank Hill wins again. Won stage 1, won the race, led the most laps. Kligerman won the other stage and got wrecked off of the bumper of Daniel Hemrick on the final lap. Austin Hill, Daniel Hemrick, Ryan Truex, Parker Kligerman, Riley Herbst to top 5. Brett Moffitt, Josh Berry, John Hunter Nemechek, Sam Mayer, and Justin Haley, your top 10. Sieg and Custer just outside in 11th and 12th scored stage points in both stages. Alfredo and Clements actually scored stage points. Brandon Jones, Bruckshot Jones, another top 20 finish. Sheldon Creed was up there early in the day, but got shuffled back. Chandler Smith had a rear gear that relegated him to 28th. Justin Allgaier got in a wreck, so big loss of points there.
Yeah, wrecked by his teammate again.
Which is just great. I'm sure that Dale Jr. is going to love talking about that on the download. Are the algorithm pick, Parker Retzlaff, started 17th, but got wrecked and finished 27th. Chad Chastain making his Xfinity debut, finished 24th, sandwiched with some cellar dweller ride buyer types. And I see anything else? Yeah, Sammy Smith started on pole, but finished 17th, probably because he's a rookie. Brennan Poole from 29th to 13th. That's a good job by them with the, JD Motorsports effort. But I think the bigger story isn't the fact that Austin Hill has won 3 of the first 5 races, and it looks like it's, at least initially, it could be a runaway in the regular season for him. But the fact that Josh Williams, he had incurred damage in a wreck early in the race, and they were trying to repair it. It was very cold at the racetrack, and the bear bond that they put on his number 92 Chevy didn't stick very well, to the point where it flew off, and then to a further point where NASCAR decided to put the yellow back out and in turn park Josh Williams for improper repair of their race car. So Josh Williams, in his infinite wisdom, said, well, you're parking me? Sure, I'll park the car. They wanted him to park in the garage, I guess they would have wanted him to do the Kyle Busch, which is park right in front of the garage, leave it there and walk away. That would have been better. But Josh Williams, being the man of the people that he is, parked his car on the start-finish line, got out, waved to everybody, gave the peace sign, and was getting cheers for that whole deal. And then promptly was taken to the infield care center and then had to sit in the Xfinity Series trailer for the remainder of the race until what's his name? Wayne Otten came from upstairs to give him a talking to. So I think that was the most entertaining thing that happened in that Xfinity race. I mean, I'll admit I was bowling, so I didn't get to really see much of any of it. But when you look at what the results were and how many laps Austin Hill led, I don't really think there was a whole heck of a lot that happened there in that race. Hill basically Hill led the last 63 laps of the race, and from lap 93 to 163, so 70 laps. I guess the last 70 laps, he led 69 of the last 70 laps of the race. So I think everybody and their mother knew he was going to win that deal, for whatever that may be. I don't know where to go with this, Josh, but if you have anything to add there, Austin Hill is on a heater. 3 out of 5 races won so far this year. Josh Williams becomes a story because he went and rage quit and left his car on the track, and now has gained a lot more followers on social media.
No, I mean, it's a attention-grabbing move, whether he intended for it to be or not. And, I mean, it's like what you said. What are you going to do? Find me? Yeah, what are they going to do? And, he did exactly that. But, it's interesting because I've never seen that, not the him walking out of the park kind of deal, because we've seen that in before. I mean, go back to the 70s. Bobby Isaac, if you remember it, well, I don't know if you knew about this, but I think one day, he was racing like late models or something, or it might have been Cup, but he just got a sign from God or something to quit racing that day. So he parked the car and went home or whatever. But that's kind of what I thought of, or something like that. Or other people just parking it. But that was a pretty big move to do, park it on the front stretch, right on the start finish line, right in front of the whole world to go and do that. And it was, the move on NASCAR's part, what I was trying to say is just to park him for dropping parts like that. I feel like he's probably seen cars have issues like that before, and they never parked him or parked the driver for that. So yeah, that's the part I'm really curious about. And I can't confirm it. I was trying to look at it a couple minutes ago, but I know that at least on Reddit, they were saying that Josh Berry kind of had the same issue with bare bond falling off or whatever during the race, but they didn't do anything to him, and it's all because of who he drives for versus who Josh Williams drives for. Which, I mean, yeah, that's can't say I disagree with that. NASCAR picking and choosing once again who to fine or not fine or penalize and not penalize. So yeah,
Selective enforcement.
yep, exactly. So yeah, I mean it was pretty entertaining. I mean, even freaking Antonio Brown caught wind of it on Twitter and tweeted something. I think he tweeted out like 2 emojis or something, and it was there for like 15 minutes, and I think he deleted it or something. But yeah, I was like, well, even he knows about it, and I mean, of course, he knows all about leaving the game earlier, whatever, when he left the Bucks New York Jets game a couple years ago, and then got cut by the team the following Monday. So yeah, of course, it was a pretty entertaining move and probably gained a lot of fans from it. So not surprising to see that as well. And now he potentially could appear on Door Bumper Clear, I think, and maybe even on Actions Detrimental. So should be interesting for to see what else he has to say. If Danny Hamlin's going to cover him on the fines or whatever, if he gets any. So be curious to see what comes out of that. But yeah, I mean, that was the most entertaining aspect out of that race. Obviously, I mean, even if the race were good, I think still would have been the most entertaining thing that happened in that one. But I think the other part of it is Austin Hill. Obviously, he's won 3 out of the first 5, which right now is pretty dominating. But remember, the last couple of years in Xfinity, we've seen multiple drivers be dominant throughout the year. Obviously, 2021 obviously was the battle between Cindric and Allmendinger throughout the whole regular season. Which was pretty entertaining to watch. Chase Briscoe and Cindric the year before in 2020, and then last year with Gregson and Ty Gibbs going at it throughout the whole year, trading victories. So it's early on, and he's showing he's here to dominate and everything. But let's wait and see a couple more months, see how many other drivers put their name into the win column and everything, and if it's going to be a pretty competitive year for multiple drivers and everything. So definitely looking forward to seeing how the season plays out in that storyline. But got to give Parker Kligerman a lot of credit for not crashing Austin Hill, coming to the checkered flag. Obviously, he had to run to the outside, and then, for whatever reason, Daniel Hemrick drifted up into his left rear fender, and then Parker was about to hook Austin Hill in the right rear and somehow just managed to keep it off of him. He still made contact, but he was able to somehow lessen the amount of contact and not take out Austin Hill, which obviously takes a lot of thinking, a lot of talent to be able to do that. Because normally when you see those kind of impacts, both of them go straight back into the up into the wall. So definitely give Parker Kligerman a lot of credit for being able to not crash the leader on the last lap and at least let the guy who had the best race, who was the most deserving winner, come out of that. And of course, Parker Kligerman comes across 4th sideways or backwards at least. So good finish still for him and everything. But Austin Hill comes out and wins the race. So I mean, a lot of cautions in this one too, 13. So a lot of yellow flags. And then, on the other hand, you mentioned Josh Berry getting into it with Allgaier, and then Allgaier, pretty much said what we said earlier with how they've basically ruined Atlanta and the package and everything with the super speedway style racing that we see at this track, and pretty much said what I think a lot of the traditional fans who understand what real racing is about. What they said, or what they've been thinking about Atlanta, what Matt Weaver probably thinks about how they have Atlanta, and what probably 95% of the garage thinks about how Atlanta is. So that was a good quote there and everything. But kind of curious why Hemrick tried to make that move on the last lap to wreck Kligerman, but last it happened and everything. So I mean it's okay race and everything. I mean, didn't really watch too much of it. I myself was watching basketball and kind of flipping back and forth between it, so I didn't really see too much of it. But yeah, I did not see the Josh Williams thing live. I think I saw that on Twitter, but the other stuff, the finish, I did see. So yeah, not really too much to take away from that, other than we have a new entertaining moment of the season early on. So yeah.
Yeah, we'll see what happens this weekend at COTA. I don't think anybody's gonna walk off and leave their car at the start-finish line. They have very high walls at COTA. They're next to the start-finish, so you'd have to walk around there. Points as of now, Hill with 3 wins, and he's had 3 additional stage wins for 18 playoff points. He has a 46-point lead on John Hunter Nemechek, the only other or John, I was about to say, but then Sammy Smith. So there's 3 winners so far that are regulars in the Xfinity, or all of all regulars. It's a truck series where it hasn't been. So those 3 guys right now are pretty solid. I mean, yes, Sammy Smith's 100 points behind Austin Hill, and he's 54 points behind his teammate, but he has a win. Riley Herbst right now is tied with John Hunter Nemechek for second in points. Chandler Smith, 4th. Justin Allgaier, 5th, even with the wreck this past weekend. Sam Mayer, 6th. Sammy Smith, 7th. Josh Berry, 8th. Cole Custer, 9th. Hemrick, 10th. Kligerman, 11th. And Sheldon Creed on the bump spot in 11th. Extends his gap to ahead of Brett Moffitt by now 14 points. And then he's got a 17-point lead on Ryan Sieg. And going to a road course where Sheldon Creed is one of his better disciplines, I think, is road racing. So it might be an opportunity for him there to go and gain some ground. Truck Series ran. I mean, they had rain out for qualifying and practice, so they were set by points as well, along with the Xfinity Series. The FR8 208 won by Christian Eckes. That's his second career Truck Series win. He won for Thor Sport at Vegas a couple years back or whatever. Nick Sanchez had a run, tried to make something happen there late, try to get his first career Truck Series victory, the defending ARCA champion. He finished second in the Gainbridge Chevrolet. John Hunter Nemechek, 3rd. Bailey Curry, 4th. Ben Rhodes, 5th. Matt DiBurrito, 6th. Chase Purdy, 7th. Timmy Hill, credit to him and his family-run team, finishes 8th. Matt Crafton, 9th. Led the 3rd most laps in the race and won a stage, too. And then, Jack Wood. So the two Kyle Busch Motorsports trucks finished to be honest, 2 is also a Kyle Busch Motorsports truck. So all 3 Kyle Busch Motorsports trucks finished in the top 10. Ty Majeski started 2nd, finished 11th. Deegan actually had a decent run. Christ. She finished 12th. Brad Holmes, like all these drivers, 32nd, 33rd, 35th. Ryan Vargas was 35th, and he came up to 14th. Akinori Ogata, driving that POS 46 truck. He had spun early in the race, came all the way back to 17th, actually got a lead lap finish. There were actually 25 trucks on the lead lap. I don't know what that was, but so they start, and that guy's starting parked. Okay. The 34 Mason, wrecked. Corey Heim gets wrecked. I was trying to go and look at the picks. I know you picked Austin Hill, so to win in the Xfinity Series, so credit to you on that.
Yeah, you picked Corey Heim in the trucks and Jake Garcia as wild card, and then I had John Hunter and Roger Caruth.
And then you had Purdy as the Fogelman pick, the algorithm pick. So kind of was a nothing deal in the Truck Series race, unfortunately. But hey, it is what it is. I mean, for Christian Eckes, there was 11 cautions. There's a total of 23 cautions between the Trucks and Xfinity Series on Saturday. So just showing how intelligent the competition is in those 2 series. But yeah, Christian Eckes, after a couple of years ago being a Kyle Busch Motorsports driver, went to Thor Sport. Now he's driving for McAnally after winning ARCA title. So he's had a very he's jumped around a lot of teams here in recent years, but he's got a lot of talent, and now he's the points leader in the Truck Series, taking over after getting the win and the one stage win as well. So he takes over the Truck Series points lead with his performance there on Saturday afternoon. So I mean, I would say, I mean, credit to him. Eckes has been running well so far early in the season. It was a matter of time. The McAnally team has been knocking on the door for the last few years, but it didn't work with what's his name that used to drive the 19 truck. And then
who was driving it last year before?
Guy, he drove the 20 or the 02 at Daytona or something. But whatever his name is, I like Charles Barkley, whatever your name is.
Derek Kraus.
Derek Kraus, yeah. So there you go. Thank you on that. I literally, once I scroll down, I see it there.
Did he even race? I mean, is he even?
He ran at Daytona. He ran at Daytona for the Young's team.
Yeah, but yeah,
he hasn't raced since.
Yeah,
he hasn't raced since. So, I mean, I guess credit to Christian Eckes, but I think another great thing to see for those who are probably counting out Kyle Busch Motorsports, all of their trucks finished in the top 10, albeit super speedway Daytona, they were super fast. So maybe that's kind of what played a role in this, but they're running decent. So we'll see what happens with that, especially coming into this weekend at COTA, where Kyle Busch will be back in the 51 truck. But what were your thoughts, Josh, on the Truck Series?
Well, yeah, I mean, credit to Christian Eckes pulling off the move on late in the race to be able to win. Led the last 3 laps. Nick Sanchez, and I think he was pretty impressive as well. And I mean, I think, aren't they a like pseudo car, like a satellite car to the Kyle Busch team? I can't remember if they are not.
The McAnally team?
Not the McAnally, the Nick Sanchez.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah,
they are.
Okay,
they're essentially
yeah. So they're a satellite team. So good finish them for them there. My pick, John Hunter Nemechek, of course, led the most laps in this race. And I thought maybe he might win, but just again, got to stay up front to be able to win at this super speedway pack racing type races, and it's pretty tough if once you fall behind enough. I mean, even though he finished third, just didn't have enough momentum behind him to be able to get up back up into the lead late in the going, because he lost the lead at lap 120 with about 17 laps to go officially. So it's hard to make moves and everything to be able to get up back up there. But yeah, definitely a tough deal there. But I mean, at least for John Hunter, it's not the series he's competing in, so it doesn't really matter that much. The other drivers in this race, Ben Rhodes, good finish for him. I think he's still doing pretty good up to 4th place in the championship now. I mean, you talked about like earlier with the Kyle Busch cars, Timmy Hill, I think DiBenedetto, Haley Diggin, those types of drivers that are normally up front or maybe don't get up front that much. I mean, that's kind of the benefit, I guess, on the other hand, and even Eckes to extent, like that's the benefit, I guess, of having these types of races, is at least it does kind of give a chance to some of the smaller teams, or teams that aren't or drivers that are not as competitive at other races to be able to try to run up front and make something happen. And that's, I guess, when you see these types of finishes with some of these lesser, I guess, in the points drivers that have a chance to have their day up front. So I guess that's the benefit of it. But at the same time, still want to see better racing. And I mean, obviously we talked about it already a lot. But yeah, I mean, this race had a lot of crashes as well in it. But I mean, that's how it goes in this series, to be honest. So not too surprised there. I think Corey Heim, I think maybe is kind of disappointed in this one. Obviously, last year he won this race, but then ran into the back of, I think, Nick Sanchez on the restart. So unfortunately for him, unable to be able to get the win there. So that unfortunate for Corey Heim. But yeah, I mean, this typical Atlanta super speedway racing again in the truck series, but at least somebody different one, at least Bill McAnally gets first, I think his first win in the Big Three series. So at least he get that. I mean, he's been around for a long time in K&N ARCA. So finally get your win on the top three series in NASCAR. It's got to be a pretty good feeling there. But pretty much theme of the weekend, drafting, pack racing throughout all three series.
And a whole bunch of nothing in most of those races outside of wrecking on Saturday and then really just driving around, holding on for dear life on Sunday. Was I did the rundown there for the top 10. So, so we'll get into, I mentioned the points. Eckes up by 5 on Crafton. Majeski is 8 points back in third. Ben Rhodes in fourth. So 3 Thor Sport trucks, second through fourth. Zane Smith falls from the points lead to fifth. Enfinger is 6th, D. Burrito 7th, Purdy 8th, Hocevar 9th, and Tanner Gray is on the bump spot. Tyler Ankrum moves up a position and is only a point behind Gray. From 9th through to, we'll say 9th through 12th is only separated by 8 points. And you start adding in some of these other people like Nick Sanchez, Timmy Hill, who's been pretty competitive. I mean, you got Stewball outside. He's in 16th in points. Jake Garcia's only run 2 races, and he's out of a bunch of people who've run every race, including the likes of Haley Deegan and Roger Carruth and Brett Holmes. So something to look at there. That's one thing I didn't pick up on in terms of, or I didn't look at as closely on the driver points for where Buckshot Jones, he's 17th. He moved up from 18th to 17th in points, but he is literally 40 points. He's 40 points or 38 points behind Sheldon Creed right now for the bump spot. So that's not good for the driver of the 9 car. But yeah, all of them will be at COTA this coming weekend, so things can change, of course, in regards to all things NASCAR. All right, so I'm curious. I'm going to go and look it up here for the NFL. I mean, you want to talk about things that stood out to you from the NCAA tournament there, Josh? Well, I'm looking up some stuff for the NFL.
I mean, yeah. Were we going to talk about F1 because that's next on the
Oh, I'm looking up at the wrong one.
Yeah.
But didn't bother to add. Or no, that's my fault. I made it smaller for no reason. I was about to get into free agency updates.
I'm moving it after F1, but yeah.
Yeah, we'll do it after F1. So good pick on that. Yeah, the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix was so interesting. I was about to go pass over it. It was basically a Red Bull benefit, but instead of it being fish lips, because he had a drive shaft problem in qualifying and was starting 15th, it was Sergio Perez who won from pole and was in a position to possibly take the points lead and take away the points lead from Verstappen for the first time in I don't know how many races. They said it yesterday on the telecast, but Sergio Perez gets the victory. He's been really good on these street courses, and he gets yet another win on a street course. Beats Verstappen by 5.35 seconds. Fred Alonso finishes third. Then he was put down to fourth because there was work done before, or they had alleged that there was work done on the car prior to him serving his 5-second penalty for driving out of his start box, and then he got back his third place finish. So Napoleon El Plan gets another third place finish, and George Russell and Lewis Hamilton round out the top 5. Carlos Sainz, Charles Leclerc for Ferrari, 6th and 7th. Esteban Ocon, Pierre Gasly for Alpine, 8th and 9th. And Kevin Magnussen rounds out the top 10. Logan Sargent, there was a point in the race where he was up near the same place he was at Bahrain, and then tire strategy and tire fall off got in the way for him, and he fell back to 16th. Lance Stroll fell out with some sort of mechanical issue, and that was basically the only real kind of manipulative part of the race took place, where they decided to throw a full safety car instead of a local or what do you call what do they call that? Or am I forgetting? Not a full safety car with I was going to say a local yellow like a sports car race, but then they have the VSC, virtual safety car. Instead of throwing a VSC, they threw a full safety car out there to get the whole field packed together, get all the pit stops done, and essentially I called it on the Grid Talk podcast a competition yellow to help Max Verstappen get up there and possibly win the race, which, to be fair, almost did happen. So, I mean, we'll just get into the standings. Next race, of course, will be the Australian Grand Prix in a couple weeks' time. Then there'll be a 1 month break between that race and Baku. The drivers' points sees Verstappen up by 1 over Sergio Perez. Fernando Alonso's third with 2 third-place finishes. 10 points ahead of his countryman Carlos Sainz, who is tied with Lewis Hamilton for 5th. George Russell is 6th. And then you have everybody else there. Stroll, Leclerc, Bottas, Ocon, Gasly, who's scored points in both races so far this year, so credit to him. He's 7 drivers so far have scored points in both races. Magnussen and Albon. And then in the constructors' standings, you see Red Bull has a pretty solid lead. They're 49 points ahead of Aston Martin, who's tied with Mercedes for 2nd and 3rd. Ferrari is 4th, 12 points behind them. Alpine is 5th with 8. Alfa Romeo with 4. Haas and Williams both have 1 point apiece, 7th and 8th. AlphaTauri and McLaren still have not scored championship points in 2023, but of course it's only 2 races in. So it was pretty much a processional race. There was a whole heck of a lot going on. Perez had gotten away. I mean, Alonso beat him on the start, and then he had to give the place back, and once he gave the place back, Perez pulled away, and I think it was going to be pretty big margin of victory if they hadn't thrown that safety car out there. Verstappen starts 15th. He was moving up with relative ease, and I think he would have probably gotten up there organically to the podium. Maybe he would have finished 3rd instead of 2nd. But I think all the stories really are the fact that Red Bull's car is so much faster than everybody else on the grid. It doesn't really matter. Nobody's going to do anything. Alonso continues to show that this Aston Martin group has done a good job, and maybe for the first time in his career, he's made a good choice in changing teams. The Mercedes cars are still not great, but they're making the most out of the situation again, like last year. While Ferrari, with the full safety car, figured out a way to dick step themselves with bad tire choices and the car not working on the hard tire. And I think that's really all from that race. I don't know what else. Albon having a brake issue there, having to fall out. He probably was on the precipice of points there, but because Williams is actually showing a upgraded team and car and everything, so it looks like they're in a much better state, at least for now. We'll see how long that lasts. But yeah, Checo wins. There was a bit of a sweat for Checo and for Fish Lips. The Verstappens proving once again at how they're not only bad winners, but they're even worse losers with the way they handle that whole situation post race. But I can't be shocked. It's just who he is. But Checo Perez gets his 5th career Formula One win. Josh, good weekend for him, at least for now. He is in the title race, but it's only 2 races in.
Yeah, it's only 2 races in, but at least we didn't see Max Verstappen win once again, breaking his streak of wins and everything going back to the end of last year. But for Perez, obviously he gets the win, dominating fashion. Obviously, teammate and Verstappen had issues throughout qualifying with the drive shaft, so obviously didn't have a good qualifying effort there, and could have been worse if Verstappen would have been able to qualify better. But I think for Perez, it's a good win, but obviously Verstappen took away the fastest lap there on the last lap of the race, and then even furthermore, they were telling Verstappen to hit 133 on the lap times, and he started pushing 132s, and they told him not to go for the fastest lap. But he did it anyways and kept the points lead over his teammate there. So, I mean, call it whatever you want. I mean, I think it's pretty ruthless, actually, whether that's a positive or negative thing. But that's what Verstappen did, and keeps the points lead by 1 point over his teammate. So so far, yeah, pretty competitive. After two races in the championship, even if it's among two team cars, but yeah, I guess that was the more interesting part is the dynamics between two teammates. Seeing, I mean, if you want to see the leader go from the back to the front, I don't know, maybe instead of sprint races, they should, I mean, the Americans that own Formula One now, maybe they should implement the inverted starts like they do in short track racing here in America. And then maybe you see the fastest guys drive their way up to the front within the first half of the race, first quarter of the race. That might be entertaining to watch. But you have that. And I mean, I think the other interesting thing to take away from this is the Alonso finishing third. Obviously, they've had good pace so far to start the year, but I think both of us could probably agree that we didn't think that Alonso would start off the year getting two podiums and get his 100th podium. And of course, they almost took it away from him, and they did for a bit, but and gave it back to him. Now he has 100 podiums. But I think it definitely shows that the Aston Martin teams figured something out earlier in the season, and we'll see if they're able to keep it up throughout the rest of the year. But clearly, right now they've both of them have had good pace. Lance Stroll and Alonso. Of course, Stroll had the issue, but he qualified fifth, so he's clearly got some pace so far to start the year. And I mean, I think for me at least, would have thought that maybe for Alonso, I don't know about Stroll, but Alonso would still get into the points, maybe that fifth to eighth place range. I didn't think they had top three pace start off the year. So clearly they figured something out. And also interesting quote by Kevin Magnussen, kind of comparing the midfield of F1 to IndyCar, which pretty interesting quote there. We'll see how Formula One people want to take that, how they want to make that comparison to IndyCar. Obviously, competitive throughout the field in IndyCar, and now it seems like the midfield, the bottom half of the top 10, seems like it's fairly competitive in Formula One these days. So I think that's a pretty good comparison, fair assessment to make for F1, in the midfield. So can't disagree there with that comment. But yeah, I mean the race itself. I didn't even watch it actually. I was out doing some other things before coming back home. I think I got back home in time to see the winners' interviews with Max and with Checo. So I listened to it for a bit though. But yeah, I think it was so entertaining, like you said earlier, that we almost skipped over it, like you said. But I mean, there's still some interesting dynamics to take away from it, mainly being the, dynamic, the story between the two Red Bulls up front. And I mean, Phil, credit to you. You got the podium basically right. I mean, you just didn't have the order. So that's good on your part, I guess. But, hey, I think two of the three in the podium, I think that's pretty easy to pick, and then it's just a matter of getting that third spot right, and then I guess the order. But that's how it goes sometimes.
Hey, you gotta a squirrel has to find a nut once in a while. Especially when you have a fish lip fuck and a guy with a Napoleon complex on the podium. Yeah, I mean Kevin Magnussen can speak from experience, of course, running in the US, ran an IndyCar race, and also ran in IMSA. His dad, his legendary father Jan, ran in Formula One, ran in IndyCar for Carl Hogan and Penske and other people.
Ran in NASCAR in Sonoma too.
Yeah, a while back. And then he, of course, was a Corvette racing guy, GT, and prototype racer for Panos for many years. So he's plied his trade in sports cars forever. So there's somebody who can really understand how the dynamics of that. I think Kevin Magnussen's probably one of those good perspective people for sure. But yeah, we'll wait until Australia, and then we'll have a long gap. The whole month of April, basically, to 25. Yeah, so it's like 3.5 weeks between the race end and the first day at Azerbaijan. So see how that all goes. Okay, so yeah, I went on the NFL website, and I mean they're bringing what is it? They're gonna bring so Josh Dobbs is signing with the Browns to be Deshaun Watson's backup. Bills are signing Damian Harris from the Patriots after losing Devin Singletary to Carolina, I think it was. And then Cam Newton he's throwing at the Auburn Pro Day for whatever reason. Brandon Cooks got traded from Houston to Dallas, so he gets a reprieve, or no, Singletary. I mixed him up with Miles Sanders, my fault, because he's signing along with Dalton Schultz to the Texans, so that's something there. OJ Howard signs with the Raiders as that's their measure after they traded Darren Waller for a ham sandwich. Baker Mayfield, it sounds like, is going to be the starter in Tampa Bay, for whatever that's worth, and then Gardner Minshew, they're talking about him because he signed to play for Indianapolis. Javon Hargrave, now a 49er. NFC Championship would have been a different game if Brock Purdy didn't get injured. No shit, Sherlock. What is it? Yeah, CJ Gardner-Johnson's signed with the Lions. Vikings signed Panthers signed Adam Thielen. Laramie Tunsil goes back to being the highest paid left tackle in the NFL, even though he isn't the best left tackle in the NFL. That guy resides in Santa Clara. And see some of these other ones. Yeah, Jamal Williams being pissed off about the Lions not wanting to pay him after he led the league in touchdowns. So I think he's probably better off in New Orleans with Derek Carr, to be fair, because they actually run the ball in New Orleans, and he'll be able to bounce off with Alvin Kamara, which means that can be a potent combo akin to what Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara were back years ago. So I think that would be a good balance there. See, I mean, I think that's about it for the last couple of days in news. I mean, I think we'll start talking more about the NFL draft after all these pro days happen for these quarterbacks next week. We'll probably get into it more. But did you have anything else to add there, Josh, in regards to NFL free agency or some moves that your Jaguars have done?
What moves?
Okay, so that means nothing. So there you go.
Well, yeah, I mean, exactly. But,
yeah.
Well, I will say that I'm kind of concerned about the lack of moves. Like, I knew they were going to have a problem with with the salary cap, because they've made so many moves and they picked up Calvin Ridley and everything. And I wonder if that factored into failing to re-sign Arden Key and Jawan Taylor. But it is a little concerning that they haven't been able to add any veterans, although granted they are in a very tight spot with cap space and with the available cap for this year and next year, and they need to be able to retain and re-sign their own guys that they've drafted the last couple of years to long-term contracts. So there's that, but you can always manipulate the cap, and just surprised that they haven't gone after or tried to sign at least one player from another team. So that's all I got to say about that, really.
I think the draft is where you guys are going to go and make your hay. I mean, even though I know who your GM is, and his track record has not exactly been known for drafting great, but I mean, he did draft Trevor Lawrence, and your guy you got last year isn't bad. So at least he hasn't missed on those two. Niners signed Cleveland Farrell, former top 5 draft pick for the Raiders. Defensive end, so he'll get to benefit from Javon Hargrave signing there as well, along with Eric Armstead, and the defensive player of the year, Nick Bosa. Jake Brendel comes back, so that means a center position, the whole lot, like from left tackle to center and to the right guard, 4 of the 5 spots are pretty solidified. It sounds like the Niners are going to go in from within for their replacement for McGlinchey, which is fine, because at the end of the day, McGlinchey is absolutely god-awful, and he got paid because of just the lack of players out there, not because he's actually really that good, because he's a one-way tackle, he's a run-blocking tackle, he can't pass block if his life depended on it without committing a penalty. So you bring back up, got a bunch of other defensive depth signings, because basically their whole entire depth was signed away. So having to make those pickups there. And Tayshaun Gibson coming back is a big deal to play with Talanoa Hufanga and Tabor Pepper, the best long snapper in the NFL, coming back, but they'll be working with a new kicker. Wisnowski's still there, but still don't know who the kicker is going to be. It isn't going to be Robbie Gould, unfortunately, but see what happens as we go along. All right, so now we'll get into the GSP roundup. The 12 hours of Sebring, it was pretty tame, I would say, and then 18 minutes to go happened and saw the top 3 cars in the race crash. That is just insane. Philippe Albuquerque was driving. Are they showing I don't know, I guess the highlighted persons who qualified the car, I guess is what that is. But the that's the one who qualified the car. So it was Jaminet was driving and he was in the lead. Albuquerque was trying to pass him coming out of turn 1. Jaminet made a dart over, slight hedge move over, and sent Albuquerque into the grass, which then, once he came back on the track, T-bones Jaminet, and they collect the Porsche, Jaminet's teammate, Felipe Nasr in the 7 car. So the top 3 cars overall in the race get knocked out. They finish 9th, 10th, and 11th overall. And they finish, they still finish 3rd, 4th, and 5th in class, even though they didn't run the last 7 laps of the race. The beneficiaries of that were Pippo Durrani, Alexander Sims, and Jack Aitken. Aitken was in the Wheel and Engineering Cadillac at the end, and he got to cross the line and get that victory for Action Express. And then the BMW M Team RLL effort, after a rough Daytona 24 hours, gets a 2nd place finish overall with Connor DeFilippi, Nick Gilloy, and Sheldon Vanderlinde. 3rd place overall and winner of the LMP2 class was John Ferrano, Kiffin Simpson, and one Scott McLaughlin for Tower Motorsports in the LMP2s. They won by less than a second over Seth Thomas, Mikkel Jensen, and Scott Huffaker for TDS, Dwight Merriman, Ryan Dial, and Christian Rasmussen. 5th overall, 3rd in class, Keating, Chatine, and Quinn in the PR1 Matheson. Wynn's car finished 4th in class and 6th overall. Kurtz, Hanley, Siegel, CrowdStrike Racing by APR, 5th in class and 7th overall. The high class racing team with Anderson, Ed Jones, Fjordbach finished 8th. Gar Robinson, Felipe Fraga, and Burdon in the Riley Motorsports 74 finished 12th overall and won LMP3. Let's see, GTD Pro saw Klaus Bachler, Patrick Pile, Lawrence Vantor win the GTD Pro category, the FAF Porsche, after what was a pretty bad Rolex. Porsche comes back and gets a win at Sebring over Jack Hawksworth, Ben Barnicoat, and Kyle Kirkwood in the Vassar Sullivan Lexus. Juncadella, Gunon, and Engel in the WeatherTech Mercedes finished 3rd after winning the Rolex. The Iron Lynx Lamborghini with Frank Pereira, Jordan Pepper, and Roman Grosjean 4th. Antonio Garcia, Jordan Taylor, and Tommy Milner for Corvette Racing finished 5th. Daniel Serra, David Rigon, and Casagrande for Risi Competizione finished 6th in class. And 7th was the Turner Motorsports BMW. They were a lap behind with Oberlin, Hull, and John Edwards. The Daytona Rolex 24 winners of Blomqvist, Braun, and Elio Castro-Neves had issues this weekend and were unfortunately unable to compete. Probably would have benefited a lot. They were about 20 laps back in the race, finished 24th. Just in front of the GTD winners, Paul Miller Racing, New Jersey based organization, dealership thing there. Brian Sellers, Madison Snow, and Corey Lewis get the victory over a fellow BMW of Patrick Gallagher, Robbie Foley, and Michael Dinan in the Turner Motorsports 96. Julian Andlauer, Udell, and Brule in the 92 Kelly Moss Porsche, Riley Porsche rounds out the podium. The McLaren finished fourth, Lexus fifth. So there is that. The Iron Dames actually had an all right day. They actually finished just outside the top 10, or just ahead of Sheena Monk, Catherine Legg, and Mark Miller in the 66 Gradient car. And yeah, so that is that. In terms of the results in the Mobile 112 Hours of Sebring, I want to go and bring that. And then the points as of now, leading into Long Beach for some of these classes, I think it's just literally the prototypes and then GT. I think it might be a prototype only deal. I am not sure. It's GTP, yeah, Long Beach, SLMP, GT Pro. So I have the points there anyway. So, okay. All right. So Alexander Sims, Jack Aiken, Pippo Durrani are leading the points by 10 over, though the 31 teams leading the points by 10 over the 10 Acura of Albuquerque, Delatraz, and Taylor. And the 0-1 of Vander Zande, Scott Dixon, Sebastian Bourdais is 70 points back. They're in third, tied for third. The BMW 25 team is in fourth. And one of the Porsches, Cameron Jaminet and Nick Tandy, are fifth. Nazar, Campbell, and Christensen are sixth. The other BMW is seventh. Colin Braun, Elio Castro Neves, and Tom Blomqvist are eighth, of course, because of the massive penalties that they received after the Rolex 24 at Daytona. And then in the team standing the same way, they're buried in eighth. The only team behind them is a 02 Cadillac, which only ran Daytona. The LMP2 category sees the Ferrano, Simpson, McLaughlin team leading the points because, of course, that was their first points race. Some of these teams did run at Daytona, but it wasn't a points event for them there over Jensen, Huffaker, Thomas, Rasmussen, Merriman, DL, et cetera, et cetera. Tower, TDS era, the whole bit. Felipe, the same deal as for LMP3. The 74 teams gets the wins. They're leading the points over the AWA number 13 and 85 JDC Miller team LMP3. In GTD Pro, the Mercedes, WeatherTech Mercedes trio of Juncandela, Gunan, and Engel are leading the points by 1826 over Ben Barnicoat and Jack Hawksworth, and 39 points over Bachler, Vanthor, and Pilet. The Corvette team is fourth. The Lamborghini drivers, Pepper and Grosjean, are in fifth. And the Aston Martin group is sixth. Riberos, Pedard, and Ross Gunn. The Ferraris, Sarah Regon, seventh. Let's go on from there. That's GTD Pro. And then in GTD, Brandon Uribe, Schandorf, and Ollie Milroy, that's the McLaren team. They're leading the GTD points over Brian Sellers and Corey Lewis and Madison Snow by a point. Andy Lally, John Potter, and Spencer Pumpally are in third, a point ahead of the Lexus trio of Teelitz, Montecalvo, and Parker Thompson. The other Heart of Racing, Aston, is fifth in that class. And then the, Porsche, trying to look. Yeah, Wright Motorsports Porsche team is in sixth. And then the Gradient Racing Acura seventh. Excuse me. The BMW for Turner Motorsports is eighth. The next race for some of these guys will be at Long Beach for the IndyCar weekend there. The next thing we will look at is the World Endurance Championship. The 10 hours or 1,000 kilometers or whatever was of Sebring the day before, 1,000 miles. Okay, whichever measure. The overall race results see the Toyotas finish 1-2. The 7 of Mike Conway, Kamui Kobayashi, and Jose Maria Lopez win by 2.16 seconds over their teammates Sebastian Buemi, Brendan Hartley, and Ryo Hirakawa. They end up 2 laps ahead of the Ferrari number 50, which qualified on pole, with Miguel Molina, Nicholas Nielsen, and Antonio Fuco I think they're the one that get, or no, I think Alexander, no, that's right. Yeah, it is the one that qualified on pole. And then Earl Bamba, Alex Lynn, and Richard Westbrook in the Ganassi Cadillac, number 2, finished 4th on the same lap, 10 seconds behind the Ferrari. Then the Porsches finished 5th and 6th, 2 laps behind the 3rd and 4th place cars, and 4 laps off the overall. The Hertz Team Jota, number 48, won the LMP2 class. David Beckman, Yaya Fay, and Will Stevens, they're going to be moving up to the hypercar class later this year. Credit to them there. And I think Tom Brady's involved with that team now too. United Autosport finished 2nd, 8th overall, but 2nd in class. Phil Hansen, Philippe Albuquerque, and Lou Ban. And then Prema Racing with Mirko Bartolotti, Danny Kvyat, and Dorian Pin. The 63 finished 9th and overall in 3rd in LMP2. Go through some of these other cars. The Corvette Racing number 33 wins GTM with Ben Keating, Verone, and Nicky Katzberg at the wheel. They win by 2 laps over the Dempsey Proton. Number 77 Porsche of Christian Reed, Peterson, and Julian Andlauer. And then the Kissel Racing 57 Ferrari of Scott Huffaker, Daniel Serra, and Kimura there. So that's the Iron Dames team finished 24th overall and 8th in class in GTM. Issues for some of the prototype programs there. The Glickenhaus team had problems early in that race. The Peugeot team continues to have reliability issues and different gremlins. It's ever since they've brought the car out, they've had issues. And then the Van Wall team had issues during practice. In fact, they're able to get 215 laps is part of probably a miracle, considering how bad that car and team is. They will run their next race, of course, will be at Portimao in April, on the middle of April, so April 14th. So they have a few weeks' time, 24 days' time, in fact, before their next race. Get to Formula 2 in Jeddah. Yes, to get that out of there. The race results from Jeddah. I gotta say, for as shitty of a track as it is and all the other horrible things, the place looks a lot better when they're run it in daylight. And they ran the Formula 2 race in daylight, and it wasn't bad at all. So, in that sense. So, the race at Jeddah this past weekend, the sprint race results saw Iwasa win over Victor Martins, Jehan Daruvula, Ralph Beauchamp, and Kush Miney, so 2 Indian drivers in the top 5. Vesti, Doohan, Hauger, Jack Crawford, and Roy Nissany. Crawford fell a place short of getting the pole for the feature race, and that sucks, but better result for him after a rough start at Bahrain a couple of weeks back. Juan Manuel Correa finishes 14th. I'm trying to see. Brad Benavides had issues in that race as well. And then in the sprint race, and then in the feature race, let's see. In the feature race, Frederick Vesti gets the win over Jack Doohan and Jehan Daruvula. Iwasa follows up his sprint win with a 4th in the feature. Dennis Hauger finishes 5th. Richard Vachor, Enzo Fittipaldi, Artur Leclerc, Isaac Hadjar, and Ollie Bierman were your top 10. Kush Miney finished 12th. Jack Crawford 15th. Correa 18th. And I guess Brad Benavides wasn't able to run the feature race. Okay. The points standings going to Melbourne in a couple weeks' time sees Beauchamp, who only scored points in the sprint race, lead by 1 over Teo Pocher, who crashed out of a good position in race in the feature race, and had issues in the sprint. So he's a point up. Iwasa, after a pretty quiet Sakir goes and scores 22 points this weekend and moves himself right into the mix for the championship. Vesti had no points at the first race and scored 28, so now he's only 5 points back, and Jay Anderuvula is in fifth, driving for MP Motorsports, the team that won the championship last year, with Felipe Drogovic. And just get in a Kushmaini is ninth early in the season. Correa scored a point. Crawford still waiting to score his first points in Formula 2 along with Brad Benavides. So we'll see how that all goes. Supercross at Detroit saw Chase Sexton get the victory in the 450s, but get penalized in the afterwards for an infraction. But Sexton gets the win over Cooper Webb, Eli Tomac, Justin Barsha, and Ken Roxon. Looks like, Aaron Plessinger got the whole shot, led 20 laps, and crashed. It looks like fell down out of the lead, so unfortunate for him. The KTM rider trying to win his first 450 main, so that's a bad situation for him right now. So then the point standings see Cooper Webb with 2 wins so far this year. He leads the points over Eli Tomac by 3. He leads Chase Sexton by 17. Those 3 guys have won 9 of the 10 races so far. Roxon winning the other one a couple weeks ago. So that's where all the riders are in the 450s. And then in 250s, what a shocker. Hunter Lawrence gets the win over Nate Thrasher. And Danger Boy Hayden Deegan gets the whole shot, but isn't able to get the lead. It was pretty straightforward. Hunter Lawrence led every lap, wins the race. He has won five races so far, 5 out of the 6 so far. Thrasher winning the other one. Deegan is third, Jeremy Martin fourth, Max Anstey in fifth. But Hunter Lawrence trying to join his brother to go and win 250 championships this year. But otherwise, once you get past that, there's actually a pretty good battle between the next 4 guys, only 12 points separating them. So something to look at. Next race will be in Seattle. So back to the West Coast, a 250 deal, and then trying to go. All right. So got through all those. Go and do all that. So Rally Mexico mentioned a historic event. Sebastian Ogier, the multi-time World Rally champion, comes back in his limited schedule and gets a 7th win in Rally Mexico by 27.5 seconds over Thierry Neuville, and then 27.9 seconds over Efren Evans, his Toyota teammate. Kalle Rovanperä, the defending world champion, was 4th, so 3 Toyotas in the top 4. Danny Sordo rounds out the top 5, so 2 Hyundais there. The first Ford was Ott Tanak in 9th, and then outside, those were the ones that were the hybrid cars, the main class cars. WRC2 cars filled spots 6 through 8, and then also 10th. Let's see, trying to see over there. Who else is there? So the other Ford of Lou Bay finished 26th in the rally, so that's rough for them and that team. But Ogier, so 7th Rally Mexico win for Ogier, and which is pretty crazy to think. I mean, it used to be Loeb would win all those races. Now Ogier is still holding on, running the World Rally Championship. He was thinking about running sports cars, but it doesn't look like that's what he's going to do, at least for the moment. He's second rally, 7 victories. So he was tied with Sebastian Loeb with 6. So now he's leads that, the most wins there. Actually wins the world. He's leading the championship right now. So credit to Ogier, the legend, and then M Sport. So back on it. So the next rally will be in Croatia, which is in a month's time. The points going into the that race and the standings. That's a championship. That's great. I want to see the standings. There you go. Championship standings. That's what I wanted to do. So Ogier's run 2 out of 3 races, but the 2 races he's run, he's won. And he's up by 3 over Thierry Neuville and 4 on Kalle Rovanperä. Tanak, who won in Sweden, is in 4th, and Efren Evans is in 5th. We'll get back to that in a month's time. The MotoGP season starts this week at Portimao. There are, of course, the major changes. One of the major changes is there's going to be a sprint race every week, every race in the MotoGP series. So there will be extra races, extra points out there. Pecco Bagnaia, of course, comes back as world champion, now with a new teammate, Enea Bastianini. Nothing really changed any of there. The Raul Fernandez and I'm trying to find his teammate there. Raul Fernandez for the RNF team. That's the old Petronas Yamaha effort. Him and Oliveira, 2 cast-offs from KTM, now riding for the Aprilia satellite effort. Then, Brad Binder now being joined by Jack Miller on the Red Bull KTM factory rides. Joan Mir joins Marc Marquez as teammates at Repsol Honda after the Suzuki dissolved their program. His former teammate, Alex Rins, is at LCR Honda, taking over for Alex Marquez, who moves over to Gresini Racing on their Ducati program, along with Fabio Di Gianantonio, who was in the top 5 in points last year. Alicia Spargaro finished in the top 3, Martin, etc. So we will see what happens with that. Can Marc Marquez, does he have one more left in him, or is it the end of the line? Can KTM come through finally and have a chance in the World Championship? Will Ducati continue to dominate just because of numbers, or can Fabio Quartararo and even Franco Morbidelli make a charge with the Monster Energy Yamaha effort? One other change is the Aprilia satellite team. The Tech 3 team is now the Gas. I think they're KTM. That's right. My fault. So they're Gas team now. Paul Espargaro and Augusto Fernandez coming from Moto2 there to ride in MotoGP this year. And then we'll go and bring up Moto2. Some changes, but the 2 Americans are still in the series. Sean Dillon Kelly riding for American Racing on the 4 in his second season, full season, and then Joe Roberts with Italtrans on the number 16. Darren Binder was in MotoGP last year. He moves back down to Moto2. Kota Nozani was in World Superbikes riding with Garrett Gerloff last year. Now he's in Moto2 with the VR46 team. And then Tony Arbolino, who's been in the lower formulas for a while. Celestino Vietti, who won races last year. Lorenzo Della Porta. Sam Lowe's the veteran. Trying to see some of these other guys. Aaron Canet, who's got his whole entire neck is tatted up. It's kind of scary looking. What is it? Fermin Aldeguer. It sounds familiar. Ben Snyder. Yeah, he's been around for a while. Chantra won last year. Acosta won last year. I think Iagura won a race last year. So, it's a competitive class. Let's see if American can actually win it. Be nice to see, but will he get a chance in MotoGP? That's the greater question. Arizona Nationals this coming weekend at in Arizona. Been likely the last time that they'll be racing there. Okay, that's what happened. Then we'll go to the NHRA. They're saying that Tony was going to be there, but in the end he will be there, but he'll be with his TSR team. He won't be racing Wild Horse Pass Motorsports Park. And what is the point of having a 6-car field? What is the point of even running that race like that? You have 6 cars. That's just really stupid. In Comp Eliminator. But in Pro Stock, it's the usual So 2 cars will fail to qualify this weekend. More than likely, Alan Prusinski will be one of them in the lone Mopar that's still out there. You got the Quadras running Mustangs. They got the Ford, of course, with Ford power. You have the Chevy, mostly Chevys out there. And Christian Quadra actually runs a Chevy motor. That's great. But I'm trying to go through here. Yeah, you have Enders, Anderson, Stanfield, Troy Coughlin Jr., Matt Hartford, Dallas Glenn, Bo Butner, Camry Caruso, Shane Tucker, Derek Kramer, Kyle Koretsky, Mason McGahey, Jerry Tucker, and Chris McGahey. And then the Quadras. In funny car, they only have 16 cars, so there won't be any bumping there. Caps, Height, Tasca, Force, Pendragon, DeJoria, Wilkerson, Hagen, Alex Laughlin, driving for, Big Jim Dunn, Paul Lee, Terry Haddock, Blake Alexander for Jim Head's team, J.R. Todd, Chad Green, Jim Campbell, and Bobby Bodie there in Fuel Funny Car. And then Top Fuel Dragster, 16 cars in Top Fuel Dragster. Brittany Force, of course, the defending world champion, Antron Brown, Austin Prock, Justin Ashley, Steve Torrance, Josh Hart, Sean Langdon, Doug Coletta, Clay Milliken driving. He has a DSR car. Okay. Yeah. Buddy Hull, Tony Schumacher, Rob Passy, Krista Baldwin, James Maroney, Leah Pruitt, and Mike Salinas, who's had a good start to the season at Pomona. Or they're going to Pomona. What am I talking about? They're at Gainesville. I'm used to Pomona being the first race of the season. It was the case for God knows how long. And the last but not least, this has been going on a while, is the Formula E Sao Paulo E-Prix this coming weekend. The points going into that race in Formula E World Championship, see Pascal Wehrlein still leading, didn't score any points, didn't finish at South Africa. And Jake Dennis is still second, 18 points back, has not scored in the last 2 races, while Jean-Eric Verne has won in India and finished second with the fastest lap at South Africa. So he's now back in the mix, only 12 points behind Dennis and 30 behind Wehrlein. Antonio Felix da Costa, for the teammate of Wehrlein's at Porsche, finished third in India and won in South Africa. He's 4 points behind Verne, and Nick Cassidy is finished second and third in India and South Africa, respectively, to now be in fifth. Trying to go through here. Buemi is sixth. Rene Rast, Sam Bird, who's DNF'd the past 2 races, Jake Hughes, and Luca de Grassi, who hasn't scored points since the first round of the championship. Andre Lauderer and him are tied in points. Lauderer had huge points at Mexico to start the year and hasn't done much since. Defending world champion Stoffel Van Dorn is in 13th, so a tough start for him in his championship defense. But it could be worse. He could be one of the drivers that hasn't scored points, which is like the App team or Max Gunther so far in the 2022-23 Formula E season. Their App team is the only one that hasn't scored points this year. Maserati team's barely ahead of them with 3 points. So that whole remake of that team, it hasn't worked out so well with this new formula. So we'll see what happens this weekend at Sao Paulo. And we'll go over all that stuff, of course, next week on the Grip Strip podcast. Let's get into the racing at Circuit of the Americas. Brought it up earlier prior to the show, Josh. Of course, decent fields. There will be a little bit of bumping process in each one. There's, for the XPEL 225 truck race, there will be 39 drivers for 36 spots, so 3 trucks will go home. I mean, last year, the race ended with the last lap crash in the big hairpin, which involved Alex Bowman and I forget who else, and Kligerman and somebody else, and Kyle Busch. Yeah, that's right. And that allowed Zane Smith to sneak through and get his second win of 2022 on his way to what would end up being a Truck Series championship. In this case, we'll see what happens this year. Bowman is back driving for Spire in the number 7 Hendrick car Chevy. Nemco's randomly there. for some guy named Samuel Lecomte, or Lecomte. Trying to go through here. Anybody else that is not? Yeah, Ed Jones. If I mentioned him in the roundup, former IndyCar racer for both Dale Coyne. I think Dale Coyne, he ran for Dale Coyne, he ran for Ed Carpenter, he ran for Chip Ganassi, he ran for all of them. And now he drives an LMP2 in a World Endurance Championship. Logan Bearden driving AM Racing, number 22. Colin Garrett will be in the number 30 for On Point Motorsports. Mason Massey and Mason Filippi for Rium Brothers. Ross Chastain will be running the number 41 this weekend, getting some extra seat time, even though he is the defending race champion in the Cup Series there. And Kyle Busch is in this race. So that's something to look at. Parker Kligerman is back in the Henderson Motorsports 75, and they won at Mid-Ohio last year, so that's someone to look at. But I'll let you go first, Josh. I've been talking for a little bit. I need a second. So your thoughts on this race, this truck race? Third time they've ran at Circuit of the Americas a couple of years ago. It was just a disaster rain situation there. This year, who knows what the weather will be, but hopefully it'll be a lot better. Who are you looking at in regards to a winner and a wild card for this deal?
Yeah, I mean, I think for this race, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out among the regulars in this field versus the ringers, including, Cup guys like, with Kyle Busch, Bowman, and Ross Chastain. So honestly, I look for all three of those guys to be up towards the front in this one. Parker Kligerman's also a good pick here because he's really impressive in that road course win at Mid-Ohio last year. So I'm gonna go with Alex Bowman. I liked him at this race last year, and I think if things go right for him, I think he can win this race. Obviously, the number 7 Spire car. I mean, I have to feel like that they're getting some kind of help from Hendrick here in development.
You would
Obviously,
think so,
yeah. Obviously, HendrickCars.com sponsoring the car. I mean, last year they started up front in this event. Well, not up front, but Alex Bowman did lead the first lap this race last year, and he was in contention to win on the last lap. And then furthermore, he was in contention to win the Cup race on Sunday, before Allmendinger and Chastain got into it. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Bowman, the showman, as the winner here. Wild card. We get the picks back up, the entry list. Wild card. I'm going to go with Ed Jones wild card here. Obviously, IndyCar experience at this racetrack. The 1 year that they ran at COTA in IndyCar. I think he's gonna, that's gonna help him, especially, it's first experience driving a stock car. But I think the road racing experience will help him a lot, and I expect him to trend in the top 15 throughout the race. So yeah, I'll go with those two as my 2 picks this weekend.
Yeah, those are good, solid picks. Definitely. In terms of picking Bowman, it's a good, safe one, and I'm going to pick another safe one. I'm going to pick Kyle Busch. Why wouldn't I? You left it. I think at the end of the day, I think whoever picks, I think one of us was going to pick Bowman and one of us was going to pick Kyle Busch. So I'll pick Kyle Busch. He's won there in a truck. He's won there in an Xfinity, or he's won an Xfinity car there. I don't remember if he won the first race there in the truck series. Offhand, I'd probably go over here to what was a functional website before, but it hasn't been recently. Trying to go to Austin, and so Todd Gilliland. So first 2 winners of the truck series race at COTA have been the 38 Front Row Motorsports team. So Kyle Busch trying to win in the truck. I'm saying he's gonna do that. My wild card pick. The reality is it's sitting out there. Might as well, because they're running a limited schedule. So Parker Kligerman's my wild card, because at the end of the day, he's a good road racer. The Henderson team doesn't run very often, but when they show up, they run very well. And now he's hedging with running Xfinity too, so he gets even more time on the racetrack. He'll be running double duty this coming weekend. So we will see what happens with that. So let me go and add that. Bill, Kyle Busch wins, Ligerman, WC. All right, so now we'll go to the Xfinity series at COTA. Picks there, so I will start with that one. The Xfinity series race this weekend is the Pit Boss 250, 42 cars for 38 spots. Notable differences or changes in the lineup this week. First and foremost, Eric Almirola is driving. That definitely won't be a Chevy. The Rush Truck Center's number 08 for SS Greenlight Racing as a teammate to Perkins. Smithley, I think they had put Smithley in that 4-car thing last week. So AJ Allmendinger will be driving the 10 this week for Colleague, with Celsius on the side. Will Byron will be running with Greg Ives in the 17 HendrickCars.com Chevrolet, and Ives will be doing double duty because he's, of course, now back with Alex Bowman on the 48 pit box. And Keebler Gibbs is going to be driving the 19 for Gibbs, of course. Connor Mozak, he's Toyota TRD guy, so he's a road racer, TA2 driver, so he's somebody to look at. Kaz Gralla, road racing experience, of course. Parker Chase, another one, open wheel and sports car experience, drives in IMSA for the Vassar Sullivan Lexus team in recent years. Sage Karam will be in the 44 Alpha Prime Chevy. Preston Pardis will be driving for his family-run team this year, number 50. So they'll have to qualify on speed. Brad Perez is driving for Emerling Gase in the number 53. What is it? Cameron Lawrence, the former TA2 champion and multiple champions in different series, will be attempting to get the MBM 66 in the show. They've had a hard time making races this year. Anthony Alfredo as the sponsor of the race on his 78 for BJ McLeod Racing. Miguel Paludo driving his limited races for JR Motorsports in the number 88. And Balicki 91. Josh Williams, as of now, is in the 92, but I have a hard time believing he will be this weekend, and that is that. So it's similar to what we had in the Truck Series. You got 2 Cup guys in the Truck Series, 3 Cup guys in the Truck Series race. You have 4 in this one. Keebler Gibbs has shown ability to win on road courses. Not so much Will Byron or Eric Almirola, but I know one guy who can win on road courses, and his name is AJ Allmendinger. So I'll pick AJ Allmendinger. It's been kind of a iffy start to the year for Colleague. I mean, Daniel Hemrick is not doing much for his own PR or well-being with some of the moves he's been making this year. The 10-car has been on and off this whole entire season. Chandler Smith's doing solid, but we're hoping for more out of that whole organization. So AJ Allmendinger is my pick to win, and my wild card will be Connor Mozak and the Sam Hunt 24, because they have points. So they're likely to make the show. I would have taken Cameron Lawrence because he won in a TA2 in a Dodge Challenger, and his teammate was one young Tom Kendall. Back at that point, he was older Tommy Kendall. But he won in a blue Dodge Challenger, and that was one of the last Dodge programs that was fully factory supported, and has won other championships over the years. But I have a hard time believing the 66 can make the show if something happens. So I would have probably picked him, but I'm going to go and pick Connor Mozak to be the wild card for me. What are you thinking there, Josh?
Well, Ty Gibbs is in this weekend in the 19, and obviously he needs experience on this track for his Cup. I mean, it's going to be a debut for him on the Cup side. So I'm going to go with Ty Gibbs. Obviously, he's shown some pretty good road racing experience going back to his win on Daytona Road Course back in 2021. And he's been pretty good at some of the other road races throughout in the Xfinity series throughout his career there. So I'm gonna go with Ty Gibbs this weekend. And obviously, Joe Gibbs Racing in their their cars have been pretty good, and obviously he won the pole last year, won at Road America also last year, qualified second at Watkins Glen. So he's knows his way around how to road race and has had overall pretty good record in his career so far in Xfinity at this track, or well at these type of tracks. Wild card. I don't know. A lot here. I'm gonna go wild card with stuff. There's a lot of good picks here, a lot of unknowns. I'm gonna go with Sage Karam. Why not? He's also another IndyCar guy, but he's more of a oval IndyCar guy than he is a road racer. But he has road racing experience as well. And this, one of the races on his limited schedule. So go with another IndyCar guy as a wild card for Xfinity this weekend.
Solid pick. He was running up front at Road America last year, and then he got hooked by
Noah
Gagson. So, I mean, it's not out of the realm. The Alpha Prime team, I think they circle road courses and the super speedways amongst the tracks that they have a chance at, kind of like the likes of, what do you call Jeremy Clements or some of the smaller efforts in the series, for sure. The main event, of course, is the Echo Park Automotive Grand Prix for the NASCAR Cup Series. There will be 39 cars so there won't be any issues with qualifying. Everybody will make the show. Changes in drivers. The first one, of course, is Jordan Taylor, the Corvette Racing driver, Rodney Sandstorm, whichever way you want to call him. He's going to be driving the number 9 Universe Chevy for Hendrick, a.k.a. Clyde's car. You have 2009 Formula One World Champion Jenson Button making his NASCAR debut with Stuart Haas support through Rick Ware Racing and a Mobil 1 Ford. We'll go a little further down through the list, and then the next thing is Connor Daly. He'll be driving the Money Team Bit Nile Chevy with Tony Uri Jr. as his crew chief, and then Mike. Okay, yeah. So and then what is it? They have Blicky. Jim Johnson will make his second appearance of 2023, driving the Club Wyndham number 84 for his Legacy Motor Club effort. Of course, Todd Gordon's his crew chief, former crew chief for Joey Logano, and works for the MRN for MRN when he's not crew chiefing this 84 car. And then the 91 will be 2007 Formula One World Champion Kimi Räikkönen, driving his second career Cup race for Trackhouse and Project 91 with Darian Grubb as his crew chief. So they'll have 3 cars this week. Legacy Motor Club will have 3 cars this week. So and then you'll have an F1 World Champion driving for Rick Ware Racing. Last year they had Joey Hand run all those races, and he did pretty well, honestly. And that was with the stage breaks, and that's one thing that has changed with road racing now this year. They are going to give stage points at certain spots, but they are not going to throw yellows. They're going to let the race go and work organically. So the way road courses used to work is whenever your pit window opened, you'd go and take a pit stop, trying to hedge for full course yellows and all that stuff, trying to make it on the least amount of pit stops. So that level of strategy is back. Though when they do have cautions, they will have a choose cone, choose rule, which will be different than they've had at road courses before. So that's also something to look at. A couple of big changes coming in there. I will leave because usually I run through the sponsors because it's only 36, but there's the changes there. I think, what did I put up there? I put up, and the part-timers and subs, I talked about them a little bit, but I guess, Josh, before you go and start making your picks, I mean, you look at some of these guys, we go back to the heyday of the Ron Fellows, Boris Said time in the Cup Series when they would go and run limited races, and they generally have a chance. Boris Said when he was driving for MB2, even driving for himself if he could actually make the show, with the weather always affecting him. Ron Fellows driving for Joe Nedechek, and then Dale Earnhardt Incorporated.
Scott Pruitt as well.
Scott Pruitt with his low down, dirty whatever thing, and talking about Juan Pablo Montoya, who was his teammate. Scott Pruitt did, of course, do well for Ganassi there as well. Just as an example, those are three examples. I brought up one young Tom Kendall, who filled in for Kyle Petty back in 1991 at Sonoma in the Mellow Yellow Pontiac, and was a few laps away from winning that Cup Series race. Got into a door-banging battle with Mark Martin in the Folgers Ford at that time. Cut a tire, had to go and pit, and ended up not getting the finish that he probably wanted. He led a lot of laps that day, and that was a race where Ricky Rudd turned Davey Allison and got penalized, black flagged, and lost the race to Davey Allison. So that was kind of the selective enforcement of the day, and they screwed over the Rooster, of all people. So there was a lot going on in that particular race. And that was a couple of months or few weeks or whatever before Tommy Kendall had a serious accident at Watkins Glen. That was one of two major incidents that took place that summer that prompted Watkins Glen to add the inner loop, the bus stop, whatever you want to call it. So I bring up Tommy Kendall because I look at Jordan Taylor getting a chance to drive the 9 car, and I think that might be the best case scenario of a driver driving a full-time, legitimate team. I think Pruitt was in the 41 for Jimmy Spencer back in the day, probably. That might be one of them. And then Ron Fellows is driving the 1 car for DEI.
Yep.
Granted, good cars, but you're talking about the lead car at Hendrick Motorsports, who is the biggest team in the sport, essentially. And that's the car of the guy who has made his name essentially winning road races, in William Clyde Elliott II, albeit it's not the same team because, Gustafson suspended, other people are out, but I think that's the best case of a ringer getting into a top flight vehicle in what amounts to like 30-something years, in my opinion. But what are your thoughts on that and some of the other guys that are going to be coming over here to run this race? It's going to be a worldwide deal. Hell, Gunther Steiner's going to be in the booth with Kurt Busch, so you're going to have a whole bunch of cursing going on there between Kurt Busch and Gunther Steiner.
No, yeah, I like that. Gunther's going to be in the booth for this one. It should be an interesting broadcast. Seeing how his personality is, and if you watch Drive to Survive, he's pretty entertaining there with how they followed him over the years on that show. But I'd like also, you mentioned all the road racers coming in here. I like that, after a long period where in NASCAR where they didn't really have any road ringers come into this series. Part of it was because they needed to stay in the top 35. The other, also because they were trying to keep owners points, but then there was also the extra entries. Remember the Ganassi had the 39 car for Pruitt a couple of times. I think Fellows ran the 81 for DEI maybe 1 year or two, I think. And also drove the 1 car. Boris Said, of course, driving the 01, which racing there. I think he drove the 66 1 year or two for Jasper Racing, and then he ran his own car. And the
He drove
77. Yep.
he did for the Jasper Racing. He drove the 23 Winston car for
Yeah.
Travis Carter in substitute for Jimmy Spencer. That put him on the NASCAR map, even though he was driving in the Truck Series at that time.
Yeah. So I mean, you got that, and that was like, I was always looking forward to seeing those guys compete. NASCAR has always made it interesting, of course, and kind of brought an extra element to the road races and everything. So, yeah, I'm with all the really credible guys. I mean, this is a whole nother level. I mean, those guys were true road racers, but now we got a couple of Grand Prix racing champions, in Formula One coming over here to America to race. Obviously, Kimi raced last year and brought a lot of fanfare to Watkins Glen, but now we've got Jensen coming here to race the 15 car, of course, testing for Garage 56, and so he's got a little bit of experience now racing in a pseudo stock car around other tracks, Daytona, Sebring, other Road Atlanta, other places. So that it's pretty interesting there too, and of course Jordan Taylor as well in the 9 car. But yeah, I'm curious now, and they have a legitimate chance to win, not only because they're in good cars, but also the Gen 6 or Gen 7 car is a road racing stock car, and it's going to give advantage to their abilities to be able to road race and handle around these 13 12 turn racetrack at or 20 turn racetrack at Coda. So it should be interesting to see. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that and seeing how they stack up against some of these regulars in the Cup Series. But for me, I think this weekend Coda, I'm gonna pick Kyle Busch to win. I think again the 8 car, they were really good on road courses last year. Tyler Reddick, of course, won at Road America and then won later at Indianapolis road course. So I'm going to go with Kyle Busch winning this weekend at Coda. I think he's obviously been pretty good on road courses before, but he hasn't pulled through as of late, in his career on road courses. But I think he can get his second win with Richard Childress Racing this weekend. They seem to have turned a corner, at least with him in the 8 car, and I think he'd be pretty competitive. Wild card, I'm going to go with Kimi. I think he's going to be a factor in this race. I think he was running really well when he ran back at Watkins Glen. Of course, got caught up in a mess there and got crashed out. But I think he does pretty well in this event this weekend, and really curious to see his second race in a stock car. Now he's racing at a racetrack that he's had plenty of experience in Formula One. And I think he can do pretty well at this racetrack. So looking forward to seeing how he's able to run in the 91 car, and I think he'll do the best, I think, of the ringers in this race.
Yeah, those are solid picks. I mean, Kyle Busch, it makes a lot of sense with the Randall Burnett and company, and Kyle Busch being the accomplished road racer that he is. It would make sense that they could go out there and do work. For me, let's see. My choice for the winner this weekend at Coda will be. It's interesting. I was kind of picking Kyle Busch. I'm like, all right, yeah, that makes sense. And it's like, do I really go Ross Chastain to repeat? Not really sure about that. And I already picked AJ Allmendinger in the Xfinity series. I mean, he's done the double before. I think he's had a double once in his career. I kind of went and hedged. It's somewhat of a tough pick, but you know what? I'm going to go Gumby. He's been up there. He is an accomplished road racer. He's been due for some better luck to go and finally come through on a road course in the Cup Series. That's where he won his first truck race. That's where he won his first Xfinity race. So, I mean, that's it. It's only a matter of time. And there were times last year where he had pace, but the finishes didn't come. So I'll go with Austin Cindric Gumby to get his second career win. Gumby Cindric wins. And my wild card is Jordan Taylor, just for what I had said before. I mean, Rodney Sandstorm, he's dreamed about being Jeff Gordon. Well, he gets to work for Jeff Gordon. He drives Jeff Gordon's car, essentially, because the 9 team is what the old 24 team is. More or less, the team is still intact. I mean, they're a solid effort. Josh Berry's been doing good enough. I mean, through 3 races, he's done the best he could. I mean, you go to a super speedway, that's not his cup of tea. Gets a top 10 finish at Phoenix. The first race was kind of a cluster at Vegas, but no fault of his own. If they can put him in the right spot, Jordan Taylor's just, he's free rolling. He may never drive a cup car ever again. You know he's going to go for it. So that could be huge in regards to a finish late in the race if that 9 car's up there. And the 9 car and their history in general recently of winning so many road races. So those are the picks. We'll see how they work and if any of them come through. We'll review them again next week on episode 162 of the Gripster podcast. Before we get to all that, we have to go to Josh for all things in iRacing and in sim racing in the sim segment. So let us know what's going on there, Josh. On mute.
Yeah, as always, of course, I think with the sim segment this week, started off with something a little bit interesting. Recently, I bought another monitor, so I have 3 monitors now, and I decided to set up triples, and now I have more than just the single view outside the cockpit. Now I have the left and right sides, so hopefully that'll help me improve a little bit better on the Sims side of things, and being able to run on iRacing and have a little bit better field of view to navigate through traffic and run closer to the wall, closer to other other drivers and stuff. So yeah, that's kind of what I was testing out this weekend. Took a little bit to set it up and everything, but liking it so far, although I'm trying to I think my eyes are still trying to get used to it because it's a wider view with the left and right sides, and so just trying to get my eyes used to it, I guess, and everything, and not feel disoriented, I guess. So not really feeling that much, but I knew maybe if I did it for an hour, I don't know how I'd feel. I only did it for maybe like a half hour at most, or or anything like that, or not an hour, but maybe longer. But so I'm trying that out right now, and everything. So liking it so far, like I said, and hoping to be a little bit more competitive on that side and everything. Because I know a lot of really good sim racers, obviously, and people who are able to do it. They run triples and everything, so it's a pretty good investment there, I think. Otherwise, I did do the Cup car, the old Gen 4 Cup car at Homestead. Ran that a couple times, I think, and it was definitely an experience for sure. The Cup car, really hard to get back to the gas on corner exit like it should be. You try to get back to the gas and then car starts to turn loose and everything, so you really got to be careful on the throttle and save the tires throughout the race, and that's exactly what I tried to do. I think I came in like 10th or 12th, I think, so it wasn't like a really great result, but it was really tough and everything, so sometimes that's how it goes. But really enjoyed running in that car this weekend, or this past weekend. Did a little bit of racing on Charlotte Roval in the GT4, the BMW GT4. So trying out that car as well. Seemed to like it a bunch there. So looking forward to trying to do that one a little bit more. Let's see. This week, of course, now the new season of iRacing underway, season 2. This week, of course, you got the NASCAR series all at Circuit of the Americas on iRacing this week. So should be interesting there. Got, let's see, the other series, 87 cars at Talladega. So that should be always fun. Always try to get into that one throughout the weekend, throughout the week. Oh yeah, now I also tried the Formula Ford as well, so I forgot about that one. But they released the Formula Ford recently on iRacing, and tried that one out. Didn't race, but just tested at Laguna Seca. So I like the handling of that car and everything, and was able to set pretty good lap times pretty quickly. Toyota GR86 car, Gazoo Racing at Lime Rock Park this weekend or this week. So that's another probably try to take a look at. Let's see. Trying to see where's the Cup, the 87, not the 87, but the regular Cup car from the Gen 4 Cup car. Let's see if I own. Maybe it's a track that I don't own car. Gen 4 Cup car. Where is that at? Can't find it. There's so many series here. I don't know. Can't. Oh well, ARCA. ARCA is at Michigan, so that might be something to try out. Oh, Gen 4 at Richmond. So that's I don't have Richmond, so that's probably why I didn't see that there. So, but the schedule for the Gen 4 Cup car, see schedule Richmond this week, and the Charlotte Oval next week, then Bristol Motor Speedway, Daytona in a couple weeks, week of April 11th, the week after Easter, April 18 at Auto Club, Dover, Atlanta, Talladega, Nashville Superspeedway, Darlington, Texas, 2009. So that's the schedule for the Cup car on iRacing for the old Cup car. So looking forward to trying out that one a little bit more in the coming weeks, of course. IndyCar, the current IR18, of course, open wheel road or oval track. Let's see, open wheel C at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. I also don't have that track, so might be a little bit. Although Cars Late Model Tour, the late model car from that they just released racing at North Wilkesboro, so maybe I gotta go get my Dale Jr. North Wilkesboro shirt and put that one on and race at that one this week at some time. Might have to do that. We'll see. Got a lot of series, of course, a lot of races that be able to run this week. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for sim racing. Just trying out different things. Got a little bit addition to the setup here that I think will help me be better and everything. So looking forward to doing that a little bit more this week. Of course, as always, when I stream at Twitch TV slash usailor2, go in there and watch all my streams and everything, and I'll make sure to try to let you all know when I try to stream and can go in there and watch my racing and everything. Don't think I'll have the triple screen set up on on the stream. That might be a little bit tough to get on there because I definitely use up a lot of resources trying to stream all three screens. I don't think you need to see all three screens to watch my stuff, but it's there, of course. So I'll try to stream whenever I can this week. Probably towards the end of the week, a little bit busy with work this week and everything, so you'll see there. But that's where I'll have all my stuff. And of course, my personal Twitter, JP Huffine. Go in there and follow my stuff, all my thoughts and everything on the races and everything else I like to talk about. Go in there and follow me, of course. And then our YouTube page at Gripster Podcast. Go in there and see our video format of everything that we do on here on this show. Go in there and watch or listen to the whole deal there. So go in there, subscribe, like, comment, subscribe onto that channel and see our stuff there. So yeah, I mean, that's it for me this week. Of course, we did talk about basketball, of course, a little bit. Got my bracket, of course, relying on 4 teams now to help me get anything I can get. I have teams that I think that help me that are still alive: Texas, Alabama, UCLA, and Tennessee. I need to win this next round to at least have something left, or else my bracket is completely dead. So didn't really do good this year in the bracket, but maybe still have a chance as long as all those teams win, and then UCLA goes all the way to, that's who I picked, so to win the championship. So there's that. So yeah, that's all this week for me, of course. So let you, Phil, take it for the close.
All right. As always, thanks, Josh, for all your insight and especially on the sim side with your now expanding, field of view and cockpit. Now you're getting closer to really being maybe an actual Indy 500 champion. Maybe Brian Reinbold would hire you, but if not, you could definitely be an engineer, or maybe you can get in Saber Cook's. Oh no, she's taken, right? But either way, thanks as always for being my bro and being my sidekick here on this deal. For me, I'm at Philip G. Matthew on Twitter. And you can find us at Gripstrip Pod on Twitter. Essentially, if you're anywhere you can listen to a podcast, you can hear the Gripstrip podcast. Josh, of course, mentioned the YouTube page. I've been a little behind, so there might get a couple of episodes this week. So if you hear this after you've heard last week's episode, then God bless you. You'll see all that, and we'll be back for episode. Before that, sorry, I was on the Grid Talk podcast yesterday for their recap of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. So you could check that out on their F1 Chronicle, the Grid Talk, different. I'm trying to figure out like the Grid Talk podcast. You can find it there and on the socials, and then you can also find it on YouTube on the Grid Talk podcast page as well for the video. So for that, for Josh, I'm Phil. We'll be back for episode 162 of the Grip Strip podcast next week, which will cover NASCAR's triple header at COTA. And then we had, as I mentioned, we have MotoGP, NHRA, Formula E, and then there will be a full weekend at Albert Park with the top three series and the FIA open wheel going, and F1, F2, F3. Supercars will be back for their second race of their season, and Indy cars will be back. So we'll get to preview all that. Cup and Xfinity at Richmond, while trucks are the part of the, the deal for Texas in their IndyCar race. So talk about all that here next week on episode 162. Once again, for Josh, I'm Phil. Take care. God bless and goodbye.